Yes, so there it is. So good morning again. We're going to pick back up here in the House Transportation Committee with our extended education piece on another portions of the agency as we run through. And now we're into finance administration and audit overview. And our first guest, I believe, is Maureen or Dana. Ladies, take it away. Wherever you'd like us to go.
Great. So for the record, my name is Jana Morse. I'm the Director of Administration and Finance for the Agency of Transportation. I believe we just sent the sharing request over for the Zoom. So as soon as that gets cleared, Maureen will bring that up on the screen. And Maureen, I'll let you introduce yourself. And then I'll jump right into the overview. Or I'll introduce Maureen. She's navigating the technical things. So Maureen Parker is our Deputy Director of Finance and Administration. So we'll be here with our team this whole day. As we're going through each of the sections in the bureaus that report under our office. So to give you an idea of who we are 132 employees across 8 bureaus. This will be coming up on the screen shortly. And we have our Chief Financial Officer, Safety and Emergency Services, Organizational Development. Then Maureen oversees audit, civil rights, labor compliance, contract admin facilities, and our hearings unit.
I apologize, I'm having technical difficulties. It is.
What's first? You seem to have that
You're trying
pretty
to Zoom
consistently
or
so
video?
far.
I think she's on Zoom, not Facebook.
There
There you go.
go.
There you go. So you'll see our org chart, and then you'll see the kind of what we are, who our mission is, and
to plug that in.
except for on Zoom, it doesn't see the video.
Well, she's never plugged in.
If you are on the Zoom, then. If you, did you pass to share there?
It's a second.
What are we doing? Yeah. Everybody can see it, okay? Outstanding. So let's go to the next slide. We can go into presentation mode.
Down in the bottom. Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect. So these are the teams that are going to be in to speak with you. Apologize, I'm standing right in front of you. Thank you. And we'll be starting with Heidi as our audit chief. So we have, these are our primary functions, our overview. We provide support services for the Agency of Transportation. We also provide services that support municipalities, other agencies within the state of Vermont, and then we collaborate on a local and national level and with our other sister DOTs across the country. We work hard to promote our workforce. That's one of the major areas within our team, and you'll hear from Colleen Montague at a future date. And we also work on our financial and human resources. So we have liaisons with the Department of Human Resources, and they're not part of our team. And we really strive to look at how we can do our work differently and how we can better serve Vermonters through the work and the processes that we're performing. So hear about some of those from all of the folks that will be in to testify today on what they do. So before I turn it over to Heidi, do you have any questions for me or Maureen? With that, I'll turn it over to Heidi.
For the record, my name is Heidi Quinville, and I am here as the audit supervisor. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the
And welcome.
committee. I'd like to share with you some of the work we do in the audit bureau. Our work is primarily broken up into three types of work. We have internal performance audits as well as consultant financial reviews. And then we act as the liaison for external audit engagements. We are a team of dedicated professionals that are focused on supporting the agency's mission through promoting accountability and ensuring compliance. For the internal controls evaluation, we are continually assessing assessing the adequacy and effectiveness of internal controls to ensure that we are in compliance with laws, regulations, and policies. Some examples of the internal performance audits and annual reviews that we do are invoice and contract audits, audit the state purchasing card usage, physical inventory audits. Annually, we complete a self-assessment of internal controls. We review equipment rates, the payroll load factor, as well as the Lake Champlain ferry toll credit. We have oversight of all the overhead and indirect cost rates used by consultants for contracting. We also have oversight of the Regional Planning Commission annual indirect cost rate proposals. When we are reviewing the consultant financials, we ensure that they are allocating funds in accordance with cost principles. Thank you.
What
Yeah,
would
go ahead.
be an example of the Regional Planning Commission annual indirect rate proposal? What is that?
Sure. So annually, the Regional Planning Commission submit financial statements as well as an audit outlining how they are allocating costs for indirect and direct expenses.
Okay, so that goes through you.
Yes.
All regional planning commissions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great, thank you.
For the external liaison work that we do, we are the main point of contact for all external communication. We prepare the department for entering into audit engagements, and that looks like making sure that our policies and procedures are up to date and that we facilitate, all the requests that come in and provide them with the documentation they need to complete the audit. We follow up. And
Heidi, who would be some of these external, who are these external people that are external groups? Are we talking about Federal Highway Commission? Who are we talking about for external audits?
Sure. So external auditors, they could be federal partners, but for example, we have an annual single audit that is completed every year. The contracted firm is Clifton Larson and Allen, and that is for the state single audit, as well as the annual comprehensive financial review. Programmatic audits can also be an external engagement that we would enter into. So we are reviewing the supporting documents the agency is providing and making sure that it's clear, and the external auditors have what they need to finish the review. If there are any recommendations or corrective actions, then we see those through to make sure that they're timely and they are in place.
So I just, so anything in our white book that we have that may deal with our own town highway system that we are getting money for bridges especially, would an audit of that go through this, you?
So any audit will come through the audit bureau. It may be the state auditor's office.
Okay, so not necessarily AOT for a project.
A project may be part of the funding source that is being audited.
Okay.
Representative Putnam?
There's a lot here. It's very complicated, I'm sure. Is there a public website or anything where the results of audits, where would we find those?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the single audit is published every year, the results as well as the findings for the entire state. And that's published on the state auditor's website. And Agency of Administration has the responsibility to make sure that that's uploaded in its entirety. Any internal audits that we do or program audits, we have the responsibility to provide those to the state auditor's office.
Okay, so it goes through that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So the partners that we work with, which I just touched upon, but they may be, V-Trans employees or the leadership team, our federal partners at FHWA, or the Vermont State Auditor's Office, FRA, FTA, external auditors like Clifton, Larson and Allen. That is a high-level overview of the work that we do for the agency.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll hand it off to the next.
Sorry about that. I'm stuck to my face. I can talk a little bit about this. It's also some time. So Christine Hetzel is our Bureau Director for Bureau of Innovation, Learning and Development. This is a relatively new bureau that was consolidation of a couple of other areas within the organization. And the team behind me, this is our Go Orange Day. So there currently are 20 positions. This was originally developed and Christine oversaw the VTTC, or the V-Trans Technical Training Center, which is a branch of our area that focuses primarily on technical training for our employees, as well as Vermont Local Roads, which you'll hear from Todd Eaton shortly. And they provide training for municipal employees as well. So when we decided within the last a little bit over a year ago to combine the business intelligence and performance unit, so some of our internal improvement data analysts and analysis team, as well as our continuous improvement team with the Technical Training Center, Vermont Local Roads, and the workforce management initiatives that Christine is responsible for. So with that, we didn't create any new positions. These were all positions that existed within the agency already. And they've just streamlined the functions and the business processes that we perform on behalf of the Agency of Transportation in this particular area. So when I first started at the agency in 2019, business intelligence and performance and the continuous improvement unit, I came in as the supervisor for that team. So it was really exciting to see how these folks have been able to evolve as a group, to build the relationships that they have across the organization, and to be able to really serve the needs of the agency and promote innovation and continuous improvement anywhere from within a garage to have them begin to maybe analyze how a stockroom is sorted and be able to look at what are our ways that we can keep track of our first in, first out of certain inventory items. How do we make sure that we're setting ourselves up in a manner that's conducive to the flow of business? So maybe, for example, we went in and we worked with Central Garage pre-flood, and we said, how many times do you walk back and forth from your truck to get a piece of equipment, from your truck to get another material, from your truck to get, the next item that you might need? And how can we help organize, how can we help you vision how you would organize your workspace so that you can minimize the downtime that you have when you're repairing a vehicle? So it might not seem like a whole lot, but they went through and they said, okay, well, the stockroom's way over here and I have to go through 3 doors and maybe 50 feet around a couple of corners. If I just knew what I had, I could get my materials and then come in and put my materials by my space and then learn how to very quickly navigate what they might need, put their tools all closer to them, and we kind of help them understand maybe a different way to set themselves up. And that was an internal innovation that was promoted by the innovation team in the continuous improvement team and Bureau of Innovation, Learning and Development. And Christine is here. So
And I
happy
think,
to answer a question or we can transition over.
really appreciate that. We had, I'll have to take responsibility with a little bit of the agenda change and our committee assistant being out today and a little bit of communication wise. We had asked, it looks like we had split your time up to ask for some little follow-up testimony on some stuff that we had yesterday, which is why I think that maybe some of your crew thought we weren't until a little bit later that we were going to interrupt with some information on new vehicle sales from.
We're happy to unplug and turn it over.
And then I come back and finish
We'd
before
love
lunch.
to do that.
So my apologies, and with a little bit of a absences and change. I think I apologize to those of you that knew the schedule and were off, and I didn't interrupt it the right way, I guess, to really look to bring some follow-up testimony. We're going to come back to your group after. We're going to transition. And I apologize for that to you and all of the witnesses. We need to get a section in order to respond to the Budget Adjustment Act, and we had some additional testimony on what has happened with vehicle sales based on yesterday. So I apologize for inserting it into the agenda to respond to some of the members and some of the information that we needed. And Jenna and I weren't able to communicate today, so I apologize for that, and I appreciate it.
I apologize. I wasn't aware of that.
That's not your fault. We had people out, it was unexpected, and I really appreciate
You're used to
I
moving.
appreciate the flexibility of your team, and my apologies for that. And if we could move over, I guess, briefly to follow up on, or to, not briefly, but to follow up, Matt Coda is going to join us. Vermont, representing the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association. So we've got a half an hour for this part, if need be, to follow up on yesterday's portion related to electric vehicles and incentives and sales, and also to introduce the group a little bit. I appreciate your flexibility. This is something that ties in where we were yesterday. I'm sorry to split up your team. So again, that's the risk you take when you hire committee chairs by height instead of experience and knowledge. So, thank you very much, Representative Pouch.
Do we have this presentation on our website, email, or not? We don't need it,
Let
no,
me verify, I was told that everything should already be posted.
but maybe not this one.
This was-
It's, I need to speak with a committee assistant about how, it's such a large file in terms of, I need to figure out what's the best one. I can't email it. It's too large of a file for mine.
So we'll see it here. That's.
Yeah, but it will absolutely be. For the record, Matt Coda, I'm with the firm Meadow Hill Consulting. We're a nonprofit trade association management firm that provides advocacy services. One of my clients is the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association, which represents 153 different Vermont companies. 93 of them are franchised auto dealers, new car dealers. And we publish, Meadow Hill Media publishes the Vermont Vehicle Index every month. And I'm pleased to present information as it helps guide policy here in your committee. Okay. Just some background, the vehicle index is used with data that we subscribe to from a company called Experian Auto Count. And so that's the source of the information. It's incredibly granular. You can go into details about luxury SUVs versus economy sedans versus, what dealer, whether it's a lease or it's a loan. It's just a high level overview. But I wanted to provide it as it helps this discussion. When it talks about new and used vehicle registered in Vermont, we're talking about first time. So not renewal of my car. It's up for the 3 or 4 year renewal, time to renew it. This is a vehicle that is either new to you, the person registering it, or it's new in general. Most vehicles sold, registered in Vermont with a green plate on it, are purchased used. 63% are used vehicles. 113,462 were the total vehicles that were purchased and registered in Vermont last year, all of 2024. How does that compare with the last 4 years? Well, it's about average. 2021 was a banner year. 2022, 2023 were down, we're up based on those. But we average about 110,000 new and used vehicles registered in Vermont. Could be purchased in New Hampshire, could be purchased in Florida, but they have the green plate on them and they've paid the purchase and use tax to the state of Vermont. The most popular car in Vermont is not a car. It is a SUV, CUV, or wagon, or truck, or van. CUV being the small sport utility vehicles that are elevated. If you back out, because you can get into this granularity, if you back out the minivans and just think about the vans that you might use for the plumbing company or electrical company, and you back out the CUVs, which are the smaller SUVs, they kind of seem like wagons, we're still more than half the vehicles registered in Vermont every year are either a truck or an SUV. If you look at just 2024 new and used vehicle registrations, again, putting in the used vehicle data, You see that we're about 6% are battery electric or plug-in electric vehicles. The reason why I separate those two or put those two in the same category is because those are the gasoline hybrid models. The main source of power in those vehicles is gasoline. It has a battery and it has an electric motor, and that increases the miles per gallon of that vehicle dramatically, but it doesn't have a plug. And it has to have a plug in order to count for something we can talk about now or later, which is the Advanced Clean Car Standard. In order for manufacturers to get credit for delivering electric vehicles into Vermont, it can't be a gasoline hybrid. It has to be either a pure battery electric or a plug-in electric hybrid. So it's got to have a plug. New vehicle, just focusing on the new vehicle registrations, 12%. We're now at 12%. The top 20, again, I'll have this information. You can look at it and I can even go into more granularity, but these are the top 20 new vehicles by make registered in Vermont. Toyota, Subaru, Ford, year after year, continue to be the top 3 performers. When you look at battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, so yes, a gas, but primarily electric vehicle with a plug, Nissan, Tesla, Hyundai, Ford, Jeep. In 5,225 were registered in Vermont last year. Again, when I say registered, could have been purchased in Florida, could have been purchased in California, but were brought to Vermont and registered here as a new car or as a with a green plate. New and used vehicle registrations, here's just another data point to look at, but I'll get to the punchline here. Used vehicle registrations, again, mostly gasoline. New vehicles registered in Vermont by month. And here's where we're getting to. I'm going through this quickly because I know you're short on time, but here's the rolling average from gasoline vehicles registered in Vermont. And here's new versus used electric and plug-in gas by month. But here is what we're looking for. The new vehicles registered in Vermont, 2024, percentage of EVs. So take electric vehicles, plug-in electric vehicles, and then everything else. Gas hybrids, gasoline, ethanol, diesel, biodiesel, put all those in the other basket, and we're at 12% for the year. But the big numbers that I think that inform the discussion, which is where were we when the money ran out for the Drive Electric programs? So that happened at the end of September. We were notified, the dealers were notified at the end of September, beginning of October, that these programs are going to run out in about 10 days. And when that happened, sales actually counterintuitively went up in October. And they stayed fairly steady. They went down in November, December, but we're still at 12% of sales. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I would hate to say that there was one reason or another. For instance, a specific manufacturer may offer very attractive lease deals on, they do this in gasoline vehicles too, they've been doing it forever, on certain makes and models, because they want to turn over to the next model year, and some of these attractive lease deals have an effect of moving the market, moving vehicles. But we didn't see, in my opinion, studying this data, a tremendous drop off in sales of electric vehicles. They stayed fairly constant. And in fact, they stayed in November and December, where there were no Drive Electric rebates, the same as they were in prior months, in the rolling average at 12%. This is the big chart. This is the one that has a lot of local Vermont dealers up at night and thinking about how they're going to comply. So Vermont adopted, on the recommendation of the Vermont Climate Council, which I also serve as the fuel sector representative, the Agency of Natural Resources in September of 2022 adopted the Advanced Clean Car 2 and Advanced Clean Truck regulation. They did so, these are the regulations that California adopted with permission under a 1970 Clean Air Act law passed by Congress, signed by President Nixon, that allowed them to regulate tailpipe emissions. They used that same regulatory structure, that same approval, to create a new mandate to reduce or to require manufacturers to deliver to California an increasing number of battery electric vehicles. Vermont and 11 other states, or 10 other states in Washington, D.C., adopted the similar mandate. So we are copying California. California has permission under this 1970 law. And despite what you may have heard or read from the Trump administration in their Unleashing Energy report, That was a different set of regulations that he promised to unwind. Whether or not this is unwound, whether or not California loses permission to enforce this, I don't know. I've never tried and never will understand how that whole process works down in DC. However, I can tell you how it's affecting dealers here. The clean truck regulation is also in effect. Again, less steep climb towards battery electric for trucks. But think about trucks as everything from the 18-wheeler that's delivering milk and logs to a Class 2B vehicle, which is like a Chevy Silverado 2500 or a Ford F-250. Again, working trucks, mostly working trucks, and everything in between, as you can see in the chart. Those have a different standard that they have to meet. Again, these are regulations proposed by the Agency of Natural Resources, adopted by the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, have the force of law, and unless and until California is denied the right to implement this, or they themselves rescind it, or we rescind it, this is the current rule. So there are 3 ways to comply. 3 ways for manufacturers to comply. It's not a mandate on consumers to buy these cars. It's not a mandate on dealers to sell these cars. It's a mandate on manufacturers to deliver to Vermont 35% battery electric vehicles starting model year 2026, scaling up to 100% in 2035, where all you'll be able to purchase for a new vehicle in Vermont is a battery electric vehicle. 3 ways they comply. One is they simply put 35, they sell 100 cars a year, they put 35 battery electric vehicles on the Vermont lot, dealer's lot, and 65 gas vehicles or some thereof. Or they can reduce the allocation. The manufacturer could put, instead of 100 vehicles, could put 50 vehicles, 14 of which are battery electric, and 32 are gasoline. So reduce the volume that they provide Vermonters, reducing choice for dealers to sell, reducing choice for consumers. Or they could purchase credits through a credit system set up by the California Air Resources Board. Credits are owned by manufacturers who produce more electric vehicles. It has become a significant profit sector for Tesla. 40% of their net profit in 2024 is from purchasing these credits. So when people say, oh, the President Trump is going to eliminate this rule that allows California to require this, that Vermont is following, I say, maybe, but maybe it benefits people that want those credits. It's complicated, it's tricky, but for Vermont dealers, they're supportive of EVs, they've sold EVs, they've made significant investments in infrastructure, in charging equipment, in training. An EV tech has to take a mechanic and send them to New Jersey for a week and train them to be an EV tech. For them, they want to sell what their customers want to buy. This is a challenging situation that they're in, being ping pong between federal policy, California policy, Vermont policy. And then, of course, hanging in the balance is what federal and state incentives are available to convince consumers to purchase an electric vehicle. It's a challenging time for Vermont's auto dealers, but just like the gasoline station, just because you see Mobil doesn't mean Mobil owns the station. Just because you see Citgo on the road, Route 12, Citgo doesn't own that station. Jeff Parker owns that station in Montpelier. Same thing with Ford and Nissan and all these dealers that are in your towns. They're owned by, generally speaking, locally owned, family-owned businesses, and navigating a very challenging situation with policies to promote electric vehicles, to incentivize electric vehicles, to mandate electric vehicles, and then administrations change, and then the manufacturers may change as well. It's confusing, to be sure. A lot of this will be sorted out, or a lot of this will be discussed at our annual breakfast meeting. You're all invited to Copying Cars in the Capitol Plaza Hotel, where many of the VEDA members who are struggling with these questions, you can hear it directly from them, not from me. You'll just get another invitation coming up. That's in a couple of weeks. If there are questions about the data or about electric vehicle sales,
First of all, thank you very much for responding so quickly, as we discussed the electric vehicle incentives and the program that ran out and our response related to, we have to answer to the Budget Adjustment Act for tomorrow. So I really thank you for coming in so quickly and specifically addressing that issue, but also the opportunity to discuss and highlight or preview something we're going to have to get into in a much more in-depth, or at least awareness-wise of what's coming for a pretty significant sector in Vermont. So it's kind of two different pieces. I don't think we're gonna be able to tackle all of it today, but I certainly open it up for questions. We do have more time on the agenda, but I definitely, this was what we absolutely wanted to see, and I'm glad to get the preview on the other issue as well. So please, Representative Fauch, it looks like you're.
Yeah, thanks, sir. This is great information. I have two questions. One, are the dealers talking amongst themselves, like the incentive programs have like, not that they're not helping, or are they feeling like it didn't really matter?
No, so I don't want to, thank you for the opportunity to clarify, Representative Fauch. Incentives work. Incentives absolutely help move the market. There's no question about that. Did the lack of incentives mean that no one's buying EVs? No. Are there a multitude of issues at play, particularly at the end of the model year, particularly at the end of the fiscal year, calendar year, particularly with different manufacturers who need to turn over certain, it's to say it's the incentives were the only things driving the market. I don't think any of us believe that. And I'm just here to affirm that. There are a lot of factors at play that have helped increase EV sales, because they have increased. I mean, if you look at the numbers over the past, I guess I don't have that slide. Oh yeah, here they are. 7% to 10%, 11%, 14%. We increased 2% every year in 2.5%, 3%. We're going to get to 35%. Just not going to get there in model year 2026.
So thank you. That's great. My second question, is there any pushback from the manufacturers saying, Chevy or whoever it is, not Tesla, obviously, can we not, are they saying we can't even get that many vehicles for electrics to your showroom?
So I would let the manufacturers, and they do have very skilled representatives in this building. I would let them speak for that. I can tell you that they have distributed a letter to the dealers saying that it will, quote, take a miracle for them to meet the vehicle mandates. And again, anyone says it's correct that it's not a mandate, it's not a requirement that Vermonters buy an electric vehicle. It's not a requirement that dealers sell it. It's a requirement that manufacturers deliver, and they're the ones that have to pay the fines of me. But I caution you on this because this is what has so many people concerned. It does not stop any of us from going to Keene or Lebanon or Manchester, New Hampshire, or anywhere over there where they have no such regulation, buying whatever vehicle we want, in whatever trim, whatever color we want, and bringing it back here and registering it. That is completely legal and available to anyone that has the means to go across that skinny river we call the Connecticut and buy another vehicle that burns gasoline. Similarly, if someone from New Hampshire wanted to come to Vermont and buy an electric vehicle because there's more choice, there's more color, there's more trim design, premium, whatever it is, Vermont would get credit for that sale, even if it was registered in New Hampshire. So it's different on the truck rule, though, which is concerning. So on trucks, as some of you know that have purchased trucks for specialty trucks, truck's not a toy, it's a tool, know that it may be assembled. For the truck rule, it matters where it's registered. So it's the same regulation, but two different paths for compliance and two different standards, all passed through California, adopted by Vermont. And the truck rule will, even though the bar is lower, it is going to be a much more difficult way to reach, to the point where there are already trucking companies that have either changed their domicile or opened up retail establishments in New Hampshire, swapped green plates for white in order to avoid having to purchase an electric vehicle in order to do the work that they do. Not because they're opposed to electric vehicles, because it is not available at a price point that they can afford or is not equipped to do the job they need to do. Moving logs, moving milk in rural areas of Vermont, moving fuel. You can't build a fuel truck that has an electric battery on it. It gets fire code.
Thank you.
Representative Burke?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, for this presentation. And can we get this sent to us at some point?
Oh, absolutely. Once I figure out how to transfer the large file, I will absolutely, I may have to put it on a thumb drive, but I will absolutely put it on the.
Great. And my question is, so you're saying that even after the incentives went away, people continue to buy electric and battery electric or plug-in electric hybrids at the same rate as before. However, I mean, sort of you can't like going forward, but going forward, if we had incentives, it would probably continue to increase the way that they've been increasing during the time we've had the incentives.
There's no question, Representative Burke, that incentives help. They're certainly not the only factor that gets people to the dealership and decides to buy electric versus gasoline. But the federal tax credit, $7,500 for those that have taxable income. That is definitely a strong factor in determining whether or not they buy electric or not. Certainly the early adopters, that was the easy part, quite frankly. Getting to 35, getting from 15% to 35, that will be the challenge. And then once you're at 35%, then I think it gets a lot easier. But that getting from 15 to 35% over the next 5 years will be the challenge if we are going to transform our transportation industry so that more people are driving electric and not burning gasoline.
Thank you.
Representative Caesar?
So anecdotally, I understand that with leases coming off in the last 2 years, that strict EVs, used EVs are getting very inexpensive. Is that anecdotally true?
That is true. And back to what, but referring to why did our EVs not drop off when our state incentives went away? Part of it is very attractive lease offers in innovative, I would call innovative and creative lease offers. So some manufacturers offering 13-month lease, some for $50 a month. Some were offering 18-month lease. We think of traditional leases as being 36-month leases. They don't have to be 36-month leases. They can be whatever. So when those leases come offline, they will go back to the dealer. And as leases work, the dealer can either buy it from the manufacturer or the manufacturer takes it back. What happens then depends on when that lease term runs out, as you described, whether or not there's more value to the dealer to purchase the vehicle back and then resell it, or for the dealer to take it back. Now, of course, if there's some leases that dealers take back some dealers that manufacturers take back and they take back at a loss. All of that will play out over the next three years, but certainly that happens in the gasoline world too. If you're trying to move your latest model year and you still have a lot of old model years on the lot, you got to push the old cars out to move the new ones. How do you push the old cars out? You deeply discount. And some of that can happen through lease because the lease offers that were available were able to capture the federal tax credits, which is a big mover. The $7,500 absolutely has an effect. And if you can capture that in both a lease and a purchase, which the federal government has allowed dealers to do, manufacturers to do, that is up. We don't know if that's going to stay. So there's a lot that we don't know. We don't know if the federal government is going to continue to provide that tax credit. We don't know if there's money available in state for that tax credit. We don't know if the mandates will have it, how the manufacturer will react to that. There's a lot of uncertainty in this business at this time because of these different policies, again, to push us to electric vehicles.
Representative White?
Could you just clarify this EV credit that you were talking about? So understanding that the ACC 2 regulation requires manufacturers to deliver X amount of EVs to Vermont, and we're trying to get to 35% in 2026 and scaling up to 100% in 2030.
2035.
2035. And you said that Tesla, that manufacturers can purchase EV credits. So how Tesla, I just didn't quite understand that.
So the way California, so stepping back, California received permission from the federal government, don't know the exact dates, to regulate tailpipe emissions, to have a standard that's above and beyond what the EPA allowed. And they did so based on the Clean Air Act, saying we need to take away the nitrous and the SOx and NOx out of our tailpipes so we have less smog in Los Angeles. They've used that same structure, the California Air Resources Board, to extend that logic to we can actually remove the tailpipe entirely by having battery electric vehicles. Received permission from the Biden administration to impose that regulation in 2022. They passed it, is in effect in California. Vermont and 10 other states have adopted that same regulation, which takes effect with model year 2026, which rolls off the assembly line in Detroit in April sometime. And what they can do in order to comply is every manufacturer has, it's based on their prior sales. So it's not one manufacturer overperforms and one doesn't do it. It's not that they're picking up the slack. Every manufacturer is on the hook for 35%. So you can either deliver those vehicles to Vermont or you can purchase credits. Who owns credits? Credits are the manufacturers that overproduce. So any of the big manufacturers could overproduce as well. They just happen to not be doing it. Who is overproducing? The companies that produce just electric vehicles, Rivian, Tesla, but mostly Tesla. So they are able to sell their credits to the traditional manufacturers who mostly produce gasoline vehicles in order for those manufacturers to reduce their requirements to deliver electric vehicles.
And is that impacting the cars that are in Vermont, or is that just happening in the ether and we don't really, like this transaction of Tesla selling credits to another car manufacturer?
This is happening in the cloud. This is way above my.
Do we see it in the landscape of Vermont vehicles?
Well, we don't, the requirements aren't in place yet. So a transaction between regulated by CARB, a transaction between a manufacturer, traditional manufacturer and Tesla, regulated by the California Resources Board, it's sort of beyond our scope. And the climate office, Jane Lasserig with the Agency of Natural Resources could provide a lot more insight than I can. We're just in this odd period where we don't know if the federal government will remove California's right to do this, because where California goes, we're currently hitched to their wagon. We don't know if the federal government will continue to allow the Trump administration will continue to allow California to do this. We don't know if they decide to let them not do this, whether California could sue the federal government for the right to do this. That's certainly within their ability. We don't know if this will be adjudicated at the Ninth Circuit Court or the Supreme Court. This could take 6 months, 18 months. I have no idea. But what we do know is that if the manufacturers decide to comply with the rule as it states now and deliver 35% electric vehicles with model year 2026, it will be very difficult, incentive or no, to move that number of electric vehicles. I'd love to say all we need is a $500 incentive and we can get to 35% model year 2026, but that's not the truth. We're not going to get there, even with a generous incentive from the state.
This issue is a sort of, this portion is a preview of something we'll be digging more into. What we specifically for what we need to accomplish right now is about whether or not there was interest among members to adjust the letter that we do or don't have to the Budget Adjustment Act. So we have another minute or two, but we'll have to go back to what our regular scheduled programming. Yes, please.
Can I just say one more thing, Chair Walker, which is to say that starts and stops. I'm sure you'd hear this from my friends at Efficiency Vermont as well. But when it comes to start and stops with funding, it's really challenging because just as soon as you get the word out there and then you educate the sales managers and then to have a program that lasts for a couple of weeks, which is probably, we're talking about fiscal year 2025, Budget Adjustment Act, what we could put on the street in May and June. If it's a continuation of funding that goes on through FY 2026, I get it. It makes sense. If it's just a 6-week program, it's sort of challenging from the perspective of those that sell the cars to be able to advertise, we got a great rebate for you, and then goes away and we got to pull it away. The feeling.
And we don't know.
Exactly.
Representative Casey.
If gas prices drop, isn't and combined with the mandates that Vermont's got, that's gonna be hell for the automobile dealers? Aren't they gonna just kind of sell out and go over to New Hampshire, and we're all gonna have to drive over to New Hampshire to buy our cars?
Yeah, I think the gas prices won't be the primary driver of that. It will be individual needs and wants. For instance, as we said before, the most popular vehicle in Vermont is not a car, it's a truck or an SUV. Truck, they do make all electric truck and SUVs, but they tend to be at a much higher price point than, say, your more modest sedans and wagons and CUVs that are electric.
Try to find a ladder rack for it.
So that's the challenge, Representative Casey, which is for those that either need or want a truck or a large vehicle. Yes, they can go to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Representative
So
Coe?
just, so these credits, so take Chevy, the manufacturer. So if they're going to send something to a Chevy dealer in Vermont, a particular dealer, 35 of the cars have to be electric, 65 are fuel, gas, correct? If Chevy can't provide that, if the manufacturer Chevy cannot provide that, they say, we can provide 20 EVs and 65 fuel, then the manufacturer is going to pay to get credits for the 15 that they can't provide to this dealer in Vermont, not the Vermont dealer.
Yeah, that's correct. In theory, that's how it's supposed to
Okay.
work. But we do have a public letter from the Alliance of Manufacturers that says that is one way that they can comply. The other way they comply is by lowering their allocation, lowering the denominator.
It's like 15, so they could
Right.
provide
Right.
20.
Provide fewer gas vehicles, and then they're still at the 35% because the denominator is less.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So again, Matt, I really appreciate your quick response. I will say for the newer members, this is a visible person in the building, and this is a big topic that we're headed towards. Connect. Oops, Representative Pouch?
Just one last question, and maybe you know, hopefully. So is California in the same spot in the other 16 states? You know, are they also looking at this sort of, it's not a cliff, it is a cliff, but you gotta go up it, you're not falling off it. Which it really starts in 2027 is when the 2026 has happened, right? So are the other states in the same position as we are, I guess?
So California outperforms all the other ACC2 states. So, think of Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Washington, DC. I'm missing some, but all those states that have adopted California's rule, California's outperforming. I get the numbers, but they're in the high 20s. We're in 12%, they're in the high 20s. And it is model year 2026, which are available in 2025. So for some manufacturers, sometimes they're available in April, sometimes they're available in December, sometimes they don't come until January of 2026, but it is in effect. And quite frankly, I have no insight. I can't, you heard the news about President Trump revoking the Biden EV mandate, which it's just a completely different thing. It was a nationwide mandate. It wouldn't take effect till 2030. It wasn't happening now. This is happening now. And whether or not they decide to pick a fight with California over it, don't know.
Who would enforce this, man? Like if the manufacturer, or whatever, say, we're not doing it. Who would sue Ford to say you're not complying with the federal law? Would it be California, or would it be under the Trump administration, which obviously he's going to direct his people not to enforce it?
Well, it wouldn't be federal law because it's permission it's confusing, but it's permission by the state of California through a federal law to enforce mandates on manufacturers adopted by Vermont and other states. enforced by, or the regulatory agency in charge of all this accounting is the California Air Resources Board.
California would.
But locally, it's the Agency of Natural Resources. They promulgated the rule. They keep the data. In fact, on their website, I can give you a link. It shows you how each manufacturer performed and what their requirement would be going forward. And it might be a good idea to bring someone from, telling you what to do, but Agency of Natural Resources is a wonderful source of information on how this would be, how it would be enforced and how they see compliance going forward if it were to stay in place.
Yeah, that is great. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much for the quick response and availability, and we'll work with the committee assistant to have that information available, and sure that we'll be seeing you again. And then I have to extend my apologies back to Jana, and your team is back and up in this until lunchtime and picking up from where we left off before. And my apologies to Christine.
We might, just a moment to get reconnected.
Yes.
Take a couple presentation.
Please do. We'll be live during that time frame, and just so you're all aware, we're still on live. We'll go from there. That's much bigger. So,
I noticed I didn't get an email the other night about your ball game.
we have another one in Middlebury tonight. We'll get to inspect more of our agency cared
You
for.
probably didn't win, right?
Streak has ended.
I'd like to look at it as 3 out of 4.
Did you?
We won 3 out of 4.
By a lot or a little?
In the end, it looked like a lot, but I thought it was pretty well.
I'm trying to help you out here. but-
I thought that the team played pretty hard, and if we had, it's all one of those coulda, woulda, shouldas, but
It was well.
they were no, I never say that. Yeah, we like to think of it as 3 out of 4 with another chance tonight.
Delivery in your.
He's in our little lake division,
Right.
so. Look at that, and we are live and we are picking up. It's up there, I can see that, we got a nice picture, a lot of orange. We seem to be regularly having that challenge as with the systems, it's not yours, we've had it with most of our witnesses.
I'm sorry, I'm explaining this as well. It's not
You keep-
Bills.
That's what I'm pulling for.
We do have this online, so
So, yeah.
if you want to proceed, I don't need to hold you up anymore.
Morning. My name is Christine Hetzel, and I'm the Director of the Bureau of Innovation, Learning and Development for the Agency of Transportation. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today and share about the terrific work that this team is doing.
So we have a few different groups that are underneath this build. That's the name of our bureau. And we really are about building. We're building the culture. We are really focused on how employees are doing their work because we know that employees that are engaged and empowered and feel psychologically safe are productive and they produce better work. The first group is the Business Intelligence and Performance team, and this is really our data team. And in the presentation, there's a couple of very nice graphs that show kind of the automation work that they do, Power BI dashboards and different Power applications for a variety of things like tracking our standard work procedures or facility safety checklists. And really the value of it is just data-driven decision-making empowers people to make better decisions. The better decisions they make, the better work outcomes, the more empowered they are, the more efficiently the government runs. Speaking of efficiency, Federal Highway has a priority area of innovation. And we have a group, a continuous improvement and innovation group, that's very focused on innovation. And innovation is how our organization evolves, becomes efficient in changing times, changing technologies. Just like today, there's all sorts of technology that sometimes is really effective and sometimes you need to pivot. And that's what innovation is all about. How do we continue to evolve and do things better? So just a couple of examples. There is an employee group that is a strategic workforce committee on innovation that gets together to share ideas and to discuss how to best broadcast innovations that encourage others to innovate. There's manager supervisor training on supporting innovation. How do you have innovative employees that are coming up with sometimes brilliant ideas and sometimes maybe the idea isn't not yet? How do you continue to have those conversations with employees, to have them challenge the norms, to try to innovate while keeping people safe and staying within the lanes that you need to do that? We have a comprehensive training program that's launching next month, specifically on how to create innovation in teams. And we spend a lot of time at the national level on all of our various workforce issues, learning from other DOTs, understanding maybe what bigger states are doing. And I'm just here to share that our small and mighty state's actually incredibly innovative in all of its workforce practices as compared to nationwide, the other DOTs. So there's a lot of information sharing going on. So when we think about innovation, that's really, again, creating an employee engagement experience, psychological safety. People want to take a risk. They want to learn. They want to grow. And that's how you grow a culture of an organization so that you're not constantly battling turnover or a bad attitude or just disengagement. So the continuous improvement group that runs innovation also does a lot of business process documentation, standardization, process mapping, working with all of the different divisions on efficiencies. They offer coaching, mentoring, all sorts of a variety of projects. And they too have a nationwide presence with other DOTs sharing best practices, curriculum. The DOTs are very terrific about sharing with each other. Moving on to workforce. So this is such an important topic that this team focuses on. Our vacancy rate is the lowest it's been in 5 years, which is pretty shocking, even though there's lots of workforce pressures. We've done a lot of work on that. 23% of our new hires are actually returning AOT employees. And that's really interesting. When you have an employee that departs, which you never want them to depart, but if they do depart and they want to come back, that means you've handled their onboarding, their offboarding, you handled everything well. And now all that institutional knowledge just comes walking right back into the door. So that's really exciting and quite a bit different than some of the other DOTs that we work closely with. They carry much higher vacancy rates. They don't have the return rates that we do. So I think that speaks a lot to our culture. So just as an example, 18 retirements this last year. That will continue to escalate as we look at the aging of our state population and of our workforce population. So we're going to do everything we can to keep people engaged, evolve past normal retirement age and be creative in how we can give people the flexibility that they need. We do have an employee engagement survey that the Department of Human Resources issues for all state agencies, departments. And we fared quite well. The areas where AOT always consistently scores above average of state average is around the opportunity to learn and grow and having the training that they need. And that is in part because we do have a training center, a technical training center for the Agency of Transportation. And we also just wanted to note, we had some substantial improvements this year in our communication scores. Our senior leaders, our leadership, our managers, supervisors have really focused on opening up communication, transparent communication, availability, and that seems to be making a difference in the workforce. The workforce is saying our communication is improving. So we do watch our.
Just
Yes.
quick question on the
Sure.
8.6% of the vacancy. Is there a common thread there? Is there a certain need that, whether it's maintenance or is it pretty much spread out? Just wonder if there's one glaring
Maintenance is.
job. Yeah,
Maintenance, construction worker, that whole sector is
Yeah.
very underdeveloped
yeah.
in terms of the amount of people that want to work in that. We chatted in years past. We used to hire a lot of farmers, farmers who sold their farm, kids of farmers, people came in with heavy equipment experience. They weren't intimidated. Now we're having to offer all of that basic training to begin with. So maintenance is always a pressure. Chittenden County, always a pressure because so much competition. The rural areas seem to have a little bit less pressures. Yeah, it's a great question. So anyway, we're really trying to make data-driven decisions in terms of our workforce, and that's where we instituted last year a strategic workforce plan. And I will just share that there's only a handful of DOTs in the country that take the time to actually look at their data analytics and really understand who's moving, who's promoting, who's applying, and then start setting goals and strategies based on that data. So we have a 2-year plan in place that is available online. Happy to share that. The workforce pressures were brought to all of the designated managers, and they voted on what they felt were their most important pressures or most painful pressures, and then what they wanted to do about it, which actually created this really successful environment of implementing mandatory monthly one-on-one check-ins. So every employee gets a one-on-one check-in with their supervisor every month. They could be riding the truck together. It could be in an office. It doesn't matter how it happens, but just that happens. And that's been a tremendously successful rollout with mandatory training around how to have an effective check-ins. It's great to have a check-in, but if it's not a positive check-in or an effective check-in, then it's almost detrimental. So that worked really well. Goals for this calendar year are around decreasing our average time to recruit, hire, and fill a position. We were losing some primary candidates or our top level candidates because it was taking us a little bit too long to hire, to go through the whole bureaucratic process of the hiring. So streamlining all of that, educating managers about hiring committees and setting appointments up before jobs close so that you can kind of rapid fire move somebody through the system. Somebody's unemployed, they want a job and they want it now. And we want them. So we're moving that forward along with some mandatory training on building healthy and cohesive teams, making sure that culture is good, and knowledge management practices. So really just looking at workforce, keeping an eye on our data, being very strategic about what we're measuring and what we're executing on. And then on top of that, just a couple of other final stats on training. We do a lot of technical training. Some of that's mandatory through VOSHA. Some of that is just our workforce is coming in maybe less qualified with heavy equipment and different equipment that they need to use. So we offered 113 in-person or hybrid trainings, different trainings, and employees took advantage of 240 unique online trainings. Some of that could be for their PE licenses or safety trainings. We also offer a lot of in-person training on supervisory training, Transportation Leadership Institute, of various leadership trainings. We do individual development plans. We have mentoring. We have coaching. We're working on succession planning with knowledge management. We have book discussions. We have lunch and learns. We have such a wide variety of employees that learn in so many different ways. We just throw a wide net. And it's been a really successful program. The training center's been around for a long time. So from onboarding to offboarding, we're really trying to create this growth mindset. I wish I could show you the slide on the Gallup strength training. We have a team grid that shows a team's strengths and how they vary with each other. And this is through Gallup. It's a really great model that talks about how people are productive. And I just wanted to offer to each of you, if this is something that you're interested in, we would love to send you a code so that you could take your assessment. And if you ever had any time and wanted to spend a half hour learning about each other, we'd love to put together a team grid for this committee so that you can understand how you communicate differently and what's important and how you process information differently. It's a really cool tool. I'm a strength certified coach. It's inexpensive, so invite me back. I'd love to do that. And then just to wrap up, one of our bigger training programs is entry-level driver training. Back in 2022, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration changed the rules on how to get a CDL and made it a lot more complicated and a lot more detailed. And it costs on average anywhere between $5,000 and $8,000 to have somebody take CDL training. So we wanted to offer it in-house. So utilizing our network, we were able to build into our learning management system a theory course, many courses attached to that, as well as in-house trainers that are field workers that do the behind the wheel training. And we've had 77 AOT employees complete that this year and get their license for a cost savings of $385,000. And then Vermont Local Roads, who you're hearing from next. Also, we shared this with the municipalities. We had 19 municipality employees complete that program. That was a saving of $95,000 for a total of $480,000 in savings just by doing our in-house training using our current staff, which is incredible. So now that was very fast, trying to get through this on time. But just in summary, we really foster and develop our workforce. And we know the better climate we give them, and that doesn't mean they're not challenged to grow and that there aren't a variety of opportunities. The more we invest in them, the more they invest in their work and the better services we're able to provide to the citizens of them. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Seems like I asked a lot of questions. This is all fantastic. We ever work with VMEC, Vermont Manufacturing Extension Corp. They do value stream mapping. They do that all throughout Vermont. But it's more manufacturing, food, producers and stuff. But they do a lot of this, and they're an extension service. So it might be, they may have resources.
I'll definitely
All this kind of training.
definitely look into that.
They'll certainly do that.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Continuous improvement.
Okay, well,
Thank you so much.
thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your flexibility and patience with our schedule. So we're moving on to the next. I guess we'll welcome Todd Eaton, Vermont Local Roads, next.
Yes, Todd Eaton. I'm the branch manager of Vermont Local Roads. I work directly under Christine from the Build Bureau.
Former police.
Yeah.
Holy.
Champion.
Roads area.
So sorry about the presentation. So my intention with the presentation is to give you an overview of what Vermont Local Roads is, what an LTAP is, as far as on the national level, some of the services that we provide municipalities, and also some of the, focusing and highlighting the new services that we were able to add last year. And here we go. So our team is comprised of both myself and Holly Hayden. Holly is our program coordinator. In the summer, we do hire a temp to come on and do equipment training. We hire him as the circuit rider, which is a LTAP for Local Technical Assistance Program, traditional title. basically they travel around and they bring training right to the local municipality's location. So we do that focused on equipment training. And as I'll talk about later, that has been a major emphasis of ours to increase how much we offer as far as equipment training over the last several years. So as I said, I wanted to provide a bit of an explanation as far as what an LTAP is, a local technical assistance program since 1983. It has been a federal mandate for every state in the country to have one. That was actually lobbied for, gosh, it just went out of my head as far as his name, but he was the town manager of Manchester. He left that position, lobbied the at the House in DC to make this a reality, and was the first director of Vermont Local Roads. And as I said, every state in the country is mandated to have one. They are of varying sizes. They are housed both in state DOTs and also in universities. Depending on where they're housed, it kind of switches a little bit of their emphasis. The ones that are in universities tend to deal a lot more with research, and the ones that are in AOTs focus very, very specifically on training and technical assistance services that we provide directly to the municipalities. Our mission is to foster a safe and efficient and environmentally sound surface transportation system by improving skills and increasing knowledge of the transportation workforce and decision makers. And a vision to supplement that is to improve the quality and safety of the surface transportation system through collaborative partnerships, training, and information exchange. As Vermont's LTAP, we focus on 4 specific areas as far as the services that we provide. Those are safety, infrastructure management, workforce development, and organizational excellence. The safety, obviously, to improve awareness and increase the implementation of best practices in roadway and worker safety. Infrastructure management to hasten the implementation of best practices in planning and design, construction, maintenance, management, and operations of the surface transportation system. Workforce development, we help stakeholders attract, retain, and retrain a knowledgeable and skilled transportation workforce. Just yesterday, most of my day was comprised of as you're aware, many of the municipalities are dealing with a lot of challenges as far as their own workforce, their internal workforce. There's been a lot of turnover as far as road foremen are concerned. Many municipalities have had to, I'll say, broaden their scope as far as the limitations that they're going to put on their expectations of who they would hire for such positions. So yesterday, I'm working with the select board to go through basically a mentoring or a internship program with a very young road foreman, hoping to be road foreman of that particular town. So that's a process that we just started yesterday. And so that's just one of the ways in which we serve municipalities, very direct. I mean, that obviously takes extra time as far as on my part, but Vermont Local Roads also offers what we call a Road Scholar program. We maintain this to track and recognize participant advancement in their professional development and skills related to subjects essential to the effective road management. And those, we have 4 levels that are attainable within that program. We have level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you become the Master Road Scholar. The several reasons that we encourage municipal participants and road crew members to enroll in the Road Scholar program. They receive experienced instruction from dynamic presenters, benefit from hands-on learning, and get to meet new people, because one of the largest benefits as far as the feedback that we receive is the road crew member from Brattleboro interacting with the road crew member from Milton at a training or some type of event that we've been able to gather everybody together. And so they're exchanging notes based on the different demographics or whatever vendors are available to them in their area and however things are working for them. So they're able to learn from each other and their shared experiences, and also the differing points of their experiences. Upon graduation of the Rhodes Scholar Program, they receive official recognition letter, a certificate sent to them and to their supervisor. They're featured in an article, the Vermont Local Roads newsletter. We provide award as recognition, and that will be presented to them in the presence of the peers. And it's definitely an increased confidence and knowledge level. There's many that have gone through the program that have, they're nearing the retirement age, but they often introduce themselves to me. I'm a Rhodes Scholar. I'm a Master Rhodes Scholar. And so that's the interaction that we can just start right off on a foot of understanding. We also maintain a website for municipalities. The website provides resources such as workshop descriptions, the schedules for the workshops that we have that we're currently offering, contact information, Rhodes Scholar information. So what each individual participant can log into their Rhodes Scholar program and track their own progress. Technical resources such as tailgate talks, current road conditions that we partner with NOAA out of Burlington to provide any kind of weather updates that might be pertinent to their particular areas. Many different types of written material as far as templates, things that can make their work easier or give them, further instruction on whatever particular area of interest they might be pursuing. There's a classified section, listserv information and registration, and links to partner organizations, and also links to other social media like Facebook and things like that. Within our classifieds, we do advertise many job opportunities as the municipalities make us aware of them, and the municipalities are also able to use that to list whatever piece of equipment that they might be interested in selling. The listserv that I mentioned is a method of communicating with a group of people through email. You send one email message to the reflector email address, and the software then sends that email to everybody that's a member of that particular listserv. It's the most efficient way as far as what we've experienced within our program to inform municipalities of workshop opportunities, highlight municipal equipment, as I said, the different things that they can communicate with one another. And it's also a great way for one road foreman, say from Bennington, has a question. So he posted up there, well, where are you getting this particular material? And then you get input from road foremen and people from across the state as far as to help you out with that. Since the 2023 flood in July, Holly and I have both been partially deployed to the recovery office under Doug Farnham to assist municipalities with the recovery planning and identifying funding opportunities to, assist the flood affected municipalities that are obviously still struggling to work through that process. I do not want to be the guy that makes you late for lunch. So as I said, I wanted to highlight some of the new programs that we were able to bring on board last year, and one of which is our Vermont Local Roads grant programs. So last year, for the first time in our program's history, we were able to offer grants to answer some of the challenges that municipalities have as far as for temporary traffic control. The temporary traffic control signs grant, we divided the state into 4 quarters, and one town in each of those quarters is selected to receive $5,000 to purchase temporary traffic control signs to increase the efficiency and the safety of their temporary traffic control work zone. So this is when they're in the road doing some type of work. And last year's recipients of that was Stowe Electric, Orange, Vermont, Milton, Vermont, and Stratford, Vermont. The temporary traffic control lighting program provides $10,000 grant toward the purchase of a temporary traffic control lighting system. We've opened that up to any style system that they would prefer. Some are operated directly by one individual flagger. They call that a flagger assisted, and some are fully automated stoplights for both directions. And so depending on whatever the town is interested in as far as what works best for them. We provide a grant for $10,000. Most of those systems run 50 to 60,000. Another program that we were able to begin last year was the Vermont Leadership Academy. We graduated 16 out of 20 selected participants. The participants must apply to the program, submit a support letter from their supervisor or their select board, and commit to a 9-session schedule that we have previously posted, just to make sure that the road foremen are obviously already busy. And also for their select board or their supervisor to know what they're giving up as far as the commitment to enter into this particular program. The sessions focus on providing training in leading and motivating municipal highway employees to increase employee retention. The participants each prepare a presentation on a work-related topic as a final project that they present to their peers to complete the program. As I said, we graduated 16 out of 20. Two of the 4 that were not able to complete the program were not able to keep the schedule. And then 2 others decided that they were not willing to do a presentation in front of their peers. So otherwise, they did finish the program as far as going through all of the trainings, but opted out of doing the actual presentation. In the presentation, which I'm sure if you will be able to see it later, I do have a snapshot of our dashboard that shows a lot of our training records. I'm proud to share that that we have been successful over the last several years. We've really tried to increase the amount of equipment training because that is the #1 requested training type from the municipalities. So we've made it a concerted effort to expand our contractual relationships with vendors and various Vermont tech centers to meet that request. And so if you were able to see this graphic, you can see that that has become the #1 training type that we provide as far as hours and frequency of the trainings.
On our page, and you can follow along from the end of Christine's for those of you, looks like some of you are there. But that's interesting, your list over on the right-hand corner of the top courses and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in years past, excuse me, so I've worked for Vermont Local Roads for 10 years and I've been the manager of it for the 3 or 4. And prior to that, I was the technical training specialist. So then that's what I did. So I traveled around and I did a lot of the training. The technical and safety training was our #1 offering at that time. And so that as I said, we've made a concerted effort to switch that around and to turn that more into the equipment side. As you see from my last slide, those of you that are able to follow along, we have a map there that highlights all of the different areas in which we've provided training. And so as we build our training schedule, we really focus and we do the best we can to scatter them throughout the state. And this is to reduce travel time for the participants. And our goal is to keep the travel time down to 1 hour or less. This, along with limiting our training sessions to about 5 hours within a day, within a 5-hour session. This reduces the need for overtime pay, which helps to increase the select board support for the training.
Perfect time.
2 minutes before 12.
I was just looking at the map, sorry. Representative Burt?
What does it cost a town to participate in your training?
To answer your question directly, nothing. So many LOTAPs, as far as all of the different centers throughout the different states, it varies as far as what they offer. Everyone aims to do it as inexpensively as possible. I believe the center over in New Hampshire generally charges $25 or $50 for training sessions. We are mandated ever since the Vermont Local Roads. The legislation that brought Vermont Local Roads into VTrans legislated that we provide all of our services at no cost to the municipality. So everything we do is for free.
I have some questions, but I don't have time to wait for the answers, but we've been in touch. Candace White, you came to visit my private road in Waitsfield. And so I'll follow up with you on email.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much appreciated. Thank you to the whole team for your patience and peace. We'll certainly try to get